This is part 2 of how to make a VR first-person shooter game. Part 1 already covered how to integrate Google Cardboard VR SDK, and we got down to testing Raycast physics on game objects and even destroying them from Raycast and logging that they exist. Now we'll go into making a basic environment and then being able to use Raycast and some animations to move parts of that environment. And all right, so we have this same scene, and everything I do I will put on GitHub, so you can just download the Unity file from there and you'll get all the codes and all that stuff. So what we've got here is we've got these two objects here. Let's just get rid of friend and enemy, and then what we want to do is we want to make a plane. So you go to right click in your hierarchy, go to 3D object plane, and can't see it, so let's just see what way is the camera looking at. The camera's there, so we're probably going to make it a bit lower. Okay, and easier way is get to this transform section here and click reset. Good. So we're close to the camera when we've done reset. The camera's at 1.7 meters in the air, imagine. So the plane, which means floor, is, if we even tell it to be at 0, it's nice and visible. Bit small, I would say. Let's play in our Google VR world. Yeah, it's a bit small. Seem to have lost it as well. So let's just make it like 30 meters by 30. The Y doesn't really matter because a plane is like something really thin. And if you imagine this environment we're going to build, it's going to be a floor, 4 walls, and a door in the middle. So you could already visualize it. Let's create a new material. So I went into my materials folder, create material, and what is this? It's a floor, so it's going to be the floor material. The floor is going to be, do whatever color you want, but I'm just going to go for some sort of sand brown type thing, and I could just drag it into the floor, or to make sure I'm very precise, I could just drag it there. It's a bit light, so let's just go a bit darker. Okay, floor is sorted. Then we want to right click in this hierarchy and let's go for a wall. So this time we'll use a cube, so it's got a bit of depth to it. This cube has decided to spawn itself into some weird place. So let's reset, go to 0, 0, 0, go up a bit, and let's just move our player on this blue axis. Let's move our player backwards a bit so we can then keep this cube for now. Let's try to keep it close to 0. Let's leave it at 0, doesn't matter. And let's go back to our player and just move our player on this Z axis back a bit. Let's keep our player at -10, use some round numbers. Okay, anyway, this cube, we're just going to call it wall. We can use a scale tool if we really want to and start doing things like this and this, but let's do some numbers. So what happens if we do like 10, let's make it like 20 for the walls width. Now we are looking straight at it, so the game view is what would actually happen in real life. For the Y, which is height, so as you'll know, X is your left and right, your horizontal, Y is your up and down, and Z is your towards and backwards. So for the height, 10 meters probably, and this wall is, I think it's actually going through the ground as well, but let's put the position here to 0. And for the Z, I think 1 looks cool. All right, so that's the first wall that we can see. We want to click it and do Control D or Command D if you're on a Mac, or you can do like right click, duplicate, copy and paste. There's a few options you've got. So we've duplicated it and we want to move it a certain direction, position. We want to move its Z position. So we're going to choose what's the distance from the front wall to the back wall. We can go 20. And if it's too small, we can always adjust it. Okay, so we've done that. You can't see it from here until we could move around, or unless we make a door that opens. So we'll focus on this top view for now. And then what we will do is make sure we're on that new wall, Command D, and change the Z to half, something bang in between. Now we want to rotate it, not X. Let's do a Y rotation, and let's just go for 90-degree rotation. And now we're in the middle. So what we want to then do is we want to move one of these positions, not Y, and move X. So let's see what happens if we make it X go to position 10. It's almost connected itself in. I believe it is slightly off. So we would have probably want to change that to something like 9.5. And now it seems to be a clean cut the way the joints and the joins are all working. Okay, so we've got 3 out of our 4 walls done. If we go back to the camera, this is the front wall anyway. So we've managed to do this wall here. So let's duplicate that. And where this X is 9.5, we just make it a minus 9.5. And now we've closed off our wall. We've done the same thing on that side, but we ain't really got a door. So from the player's perspective, they can't get into this house without jumping or jetpacking over. So let's click that thing there, which is wall, and you can click this tool here and it lets you start to actually manipulate and drag things. So okay, where were we before? We were on like 20 on the scale. We want to divide 20 by 3 if we want to be precise and perfect. It's going to be like 6.6 recurring, but we can just eyeball it. Doesn't really matter for this demo. Yeah, so we've clicked this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 5th one is like some points, polygon point type thing. And let's keep an eye on this scale X thing. We want to get to like 6.67, that'll do. And then we want to duplicate this thing again. And now we've duplicated this one here, we can move it. Right now its position is -6. What happens if we do +6? Okay, yeah, it's basically moved it to that side. And we could duplicate it again, the new one. And I'm guessing if we move it to like 0, it will close the gap. So let's move it to position 0. Yep. And the reason is because, and in a way, I was hoping we'd have a little gap, but we don't. So we've probably gone a bit over the 6.6 recurring, which doesn't really matter. So what we can do is we can, just to symbolize the door, just make that top bit a bit less there in height. So this kind of shows it could be a door. If you really want to go like show it's a door, you could go in a bit that side, in a bit that side. And now you can see here in the game view that it's different to everything else. Let's make a material for the wall. So go into your, whatever you're calling your game or your level. If you've got a folder for that, make a subfolder materials. Go into there and create a material. Call this wall material. And yeah, let's go gray. I think this will do. So what you can do is you can select all of your walls. Select all your walls, and so if you've got decent naming, then you already know what you've selected. Now if you just do this, it will only apply it to one. You see if I dragged it, only applied it to one, so that's not what we want. Once you've selected all your walls, inside this inspector block, hierarchy block section, inside mesh renderer, there's this default material thing. That's where you want to drag it into there. Boom, it's just materialized everything. Yeah, so now we have got we've got the wall done, we've got the floor done. Let's check Miro to see what else do we need. Okay, so tick, kind of tick, but we need to start moving this door around. So this is where it starts getting a little bit complicated. The way we would move this door, instead of using a full-on animation system, which is like, you can use that for like cinematic production that people are doing with Unity right now, we just want to basically make a code to tell it, move this door, look at this Y position. Let me make that 0. We want to, let me just shrink this down a bit more, and then go to 0 there. We want to make a code that will make this door just go down, and then when we want to close the door, it will go up. So the way we're going to do this is by making a script and attaching it to the door, and then we're going to make another script and we're going to make a door button and attach it to the door button. And in fact, let's make a button. Let's make like a UI button. So first, also let's rename this door, and then let's get everything to do the environment. Well, let's actually create a game object and empty. Call it 000. Call it environment. Grab all of this stuff, dump it in there. Hopefully things have stayed how they should. Yeah, nothing's moved out of place. It normally never really does. Okay, so now we'll make another cube. It's dumped it inside the castle, the environment. So we're gonna, put it there. Let's make this gonna be our button. So it's a bit thick, so we're gonna maybe make it like 0.5, 0.7. Okay, so I'm just repositioning. Okay, this will do it for now. And this button, we need to make a color. So we're in the materials folder. You can make a material anywhere, but you're just going to struggle to find it. So we're going to call this button material. So I think both of our buttons probably will have the same button, same material. Find whatever color you want. I'm going to go for minty green. I'm going to set this thing to transparent as well. Drag it there, but it ain't transparent if you look there. So I go back here, and this A means alpha. Where did I go? Yeah, A means alpha, and once you start doing that, as you can see, you're more concerned about what the bottom window looks like, because that's what the player, the mobile, the VR headset will see. Maybe something just doesn't feel right about this color. I'll just go with that for now. We're going to call this BTN, button enter. And then we want to right click that button. So we're going to make a child object of that button and do 3D text. And as you can see, it's like all over the place. So start by going middle center on the anchor, center on the alignment, hit the scale tool, no, not that one, do the center one, so it just proportionally scales everything down. Yeah, start to navigate around your 3D world. Those are the types of basics in Unity, operating interface that I'm not really going to cover. And we want to just move this text, also let's just call it enter. Make sure the text is a little bit above, in front of the button. The reason we've made it a child of the button is whenever you move the button, the text will move with it. In this, and it will keep its positioning linked to the button. Okay, so now because we scaled that down, we can increase the font size to like start getting some more clarity. Scale, it's a bit of just a Unity trick. Scale the text down and increase the font size, and the pixelation goes away. It's probably a more professional way to do this. Also, this font looks a bit basic. I think I have to pick this thing here. Yeah, so once you do this positioning once, it should make it a bit easier, because we'll just duplicate this button, probably after we've brought the codes in and made sure it's working. That looks a bit better. And cool, we'll tweak this thing a bit later. And we can just call this like a label. Now we've got this tagging thing in Unity as well. The reason I like to use tags is if you start cloning the button, it changes the name. So you've got a 1, it's got a 2, and you can use code just to start cloning loads of things. So what we're going to do is make a label and call the label, or make a tag and call the tag enter. So I've already got my tag thing there. So one way to get there is go to edit, project settings, and then just it's just going to keep attaching to something now. Great. Okay, this is what it was like when we were editing the Google VR settings. I think it took us into like one of these things here. So you want to go to edit, project settings, and then you can click tags and layers. I just tried to dock it like that. So I go to tags. There's a few ways to do this. You could also, like, in your inspector, you can go here and then you can just like add a tag, and then it just brings you up into that place anyway. but there's just a convenience reason I prefer this way. You'll make sure you apply your tag if you do it this way. So you've got enter there. So now when you get here, enter's already going to be here. And we've applied it to the button. So now we can tell the Raycast to look for the tag, enter. Don't have to worry about the object name. Okay, so that is done. What we want to do is we want to make it when this camera looks at this button that this door goes down. We are going to make a script for the door. So we're going to go to our script folder and we're just going to call it door. So what we did, we right-clicked, create C# script. There's a few other ways you could create your own scripts, but you know, right-clicking in that project area is a good way to do it. So inside here, what we want to do is we want to first, in the door script, we want to make a private vector3. A vector3 is a coordinate system to declare an X, Y, and Z, you know, number system or positioning system. So we've called it vector3 target position. I'll comment all this code so when it gets onto GitHub, probably doing this video as well, people know what's going on. And then we want to make a public vector3. So that way we can mess with the public vector3 in the Unity editor. And we want to call this lowered position. So if there is no errors, Unity will let us, did I drag it to the door yet? I don't think I dragged the script to the door. Now it's dragged the script to the door, it's telling us what's your lowered position. So, because that's the public. You see, if we go to this script here, public lowered position, private target position. So it ain't going to show us the private, but it will expose us the public. So anyway, the 0 looks like it's a 0. That's like the round numbers in the position. The Z looks like it's a 0. We don't want to be moving the door backwards. We don't want to move the door left, which is X. We just want to move the door to, well, it looks like -4.5 does the job. So let's just test. -4.5 seems to get rid of the door. So the lowered position is going to be -4.5. And yep, we haven't changed anything there. So let's go back to our code. And then what we're going to do is in the start method, so this is only called once. You can invoke it in multiple times, but by default, when you press play or when the player turns on that Android app or the iOS Google Cardboard app, this whatever we write here is just going to be called once. You know, traditional programming, top down. Whereas whatever's in the update is just going to keep going on. So what we're going to do in the start method is we're going to say this target position. And we're going to kind of declare and set it. So we're going to say target, because we haven't said what the target position is. Target position equals transform.position. So we're inside the door. As you will remember, we have dragged this code into the door. So whatever the starting position, so we're assuming we have put the door in the right place, you know, before we've shipped the game to the market, to the player. So we could have put this in by coordinates too, but you know, it's a bit long to do that. Whatever the starting position of this door is, the transform position, we're saying make that the set the target position to the transform position. So whatever the starting position of the door was. So set the private variable, because we can mess with private variables within the script only. Set the private variable, what's it called, target position, to the door's actual starting position, which is transform.position. Now, starting because this is the start of the script. And then what we want to do is we want to use, we want to basically make a new method. And we want to say public void, so we can access it elsewhere, lower door. When you make a method, you have to put these two regular brackets because sometimes you can let people have to enter things into the method, but we're not. We just have to write it, even if we're not using that capability. And then what we're going to say here is target position equals lowered position. So when something happens and this method is called, we're going to change the target position, which we've initially declared as the store starting point. We're going to change it to the lowered position, and the lowered position is the y is minus 4.5, so the y does that. But for it to animate, it needs to, the update method is always going to be looking, 60 times a minute, 60 times a second, so 3,600 times a minute. It's going to keep incrementing, or looking for this for whatever we're writing is. So we're going to say transform.position equals vector3 dot lerp. So we're giving the position of the door because we are in the door. So we're saying the door's transform position is going to become a different vector3, and inside vector3 you can then call on to this lerp thing. And what lerp does is linear interpolation. So I don't know if anyone even remembers maths from high school, but it's going to move whatever we set. So say we set A, so our transform position is A, it's going to move it to the new position, so lower door minus A, and it's just going to figure out things like that, and then it's going to do it in a certain speed. So yeah, you have to do some brackets. So yeah. Just to make it easier to understand, transform.position equals vector3 dot lerp, and then you have to tell it where is your A point, what is your B point, where's your kind of like your starting point and your finishing point that you want it to animate between, and at what speed do you want the animation to take place. So we're going to say you want it to start from whatever the transform position is, and then you just want it to animate to the target position, not to the lowered position, because if you look below, the target position is going to keep changing. So when we make a closed door, we're going to change the target position to the closed door, and every time you look at the closed button, the target position is going to become the closed position, and this animation is going to keep trying to move the current position to the target position. It will all make sense in a bit. And then we're going to, we could tell it, move it at like 1,000 floating point units, but we're just going to say the speed is time dot delta time, and you have to put this semicolon at the end. But this ain't really going to do nothing, because from a code perspective, okay, it did that, which is not right. Okay, so whatever it's doing, it ain't doing it right. And let's just try to figure something out. In fact, the door is just gone. Like look, it's just gone from the hierarchy. And oh, okay, so it's still remembering some of our old codes. I think it's remembering the destruction codes, possibly, which is not cool. So let's get rid of that. And we can keep that debug.log thing there because we probably want to know what we are looking at. Yes, I don't think the door was supposed to disappear. Yeah, okay, so like this is what I was trying to show you. Even though we've told it to do the lerp and move the door to the target position, nothing's really happening because we haven't told this enter button to become, we haven't told this enter button to change the transform position to lower or the target position to lower. So what we need to do is make another script. So we're going to call this script door button. And we want to let it compile. We want to drag this onto the button. And yeah, it's in the button now, we can confirm. So let's open up that script. And the first thing we want to do is let's just make sure we've got everything here that we need. Now, before we do that, let's start commenting. So this is a custom method to change the target position, the door's target position to the lowered position. What's this? This thing here is animation using lerp to move the door's current position to the target position. Now the reason the door is not animating now is because the target position is the transform position, because that's the only thing that's been set. So if we, just to keep it cleaner, we move that on top, and let's also move this on top. So we're mentioning what this raycasting thing is. Okay, so now we've gone to the door button. Let's recap. How did we even get there? We made a door button. We made a door button script. We dragged it onto this button called button enter, and this button enter has a tag as well. So what the first thing we want to do is we want to be able to reference the actual door. So inside the door button, it doesn't even know about the rest of the world. It can do if you do some codes, but we want to say public door in capital D and then small d. This will now tell the door button to accept the codes from the regular door. And the reason I didn't make a script called door enter and then we'll make another door close, there'll be just too many scripts, and if we be smart about it, we can get rid of everything in like one script instead of having two scripts. So now you can see this door button, it's asking for a door. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag the door object into it, and now it's not a picture icon of an object, it's an icon of code. So it's going to access the code of a game object. So this, what it means is it's going to access the code of that game object, and it can manipulate that game object. It's not actually accessing just the code on its own. All right, so we're going to go back, and now we're going to ignore start, we're going to ignore update. We could technically delete them, but just leave it there for now so we don't confuse the audience. We're going to make a new custom method. So in fact, custom method for when the open button is being looked at. then we're going to say public void look at open. You can call this what you want. You can call it cats and dogs, but I'm trying to come up with something that will allow us to at least remember this when in the next 10 minutes, not forget it, and also when we come back to it later, we still remember what's going on. Okay, so we've told it a custom method for when the open button is being looked at. Now, if we ever forget what's going on, we are in the door button. We've made a door button script, a code, and we've dragged it into the door button. So yeah, we're in now. We've created this custom method saying look at open. So what we want to do is we've also told it let us access the codes of the door, and we have even dragged the door's codes into here. So what we want to do is we're going to say door dot lower door brackets semicolon. What does all this mean? Inside the door, we made this thing called lower door, and lower door means change the target position to the lowered position. So when this button is being looked at, then it's going to access the door's code and tell it to call that method called lower door. And when it calls that, I can just do it from here. It's going to go there, and when it goes to lower door, it's going to change the position. So now we need to start using the raycast in the player to trigger all of that. So in theory, this VR camera, let me go into play mode. Hopefully there's no bugs and it will play. Yeah, no bugs that I've created. Yeah, if I even select this thing, yeah, okay. See this. What we're telling it is when our raycast, so if you look in this console, boom, this enter thing is now going up where it says you have hit button enter. When we look here, we need to tell it in the door button to start to. So when we look at the door button enter, we need to tell it, okay, cool, look at open. And then when we look at open, it's going to go into the door and say lower door, and in the door it's going to say lower door is going to say change target position to your lower position. So yeah, it is a bit of a roundabout, but that's just the way it works. So we also have a tag, as you remember, called enter. So let's go into the player, the VR player script, because that's where we want to start figuring out what happens with when it looks somewhere. So okay, we have already told it raycast, make a raycast variable basically, and then we're going to tell it if physics.raycast, if the raycast is going to take place or is taking place from the position of the camera in the direction forward, wherever that camera is rotating and moving, save it into the variable called hit. Then we want to make a if statement within an if statement. So I've commented out this thing here, so we don't even need it right now. We're going to say if again. And we're going to say if hit dot transform dot tag double equals enter. Double equals means compare. We're not changing the name of the tag. The if statement won't even let you do that in this part. We're saying if we did make a hit, so if the hit takes place and if its tag equals double equals if it is enter, then not semicolon, greater than curly brackets, then do something. So what we want to do is we want to, if we've looked at hit, we want to go into door button and we want to hit and we want to activate look at open. And if we activate look at open, it goes into door.lower door, which then will automatically change target position, which then will automatically trigger this update thing, which is always looking for a change in target position. So the way to do that, we could have told it give us the door button, how we did with the door, but let's just do it by code. Hit dot transform dot get component triangle brackets, and inside triangle brackets, what are we trying to get? We're trying to get the door buttons code. Component basically means code in this instance. You have to do a dot and 2 brackets, which we can just leave empty, and then another dot and just 2 brackets, not a dot. And then you do a dot, and then look at open. Look at open is a method, so it needs 2 brackets, and done. So what went on here is we've set up a raycasting variable inside the update method of the VR player, of that player camera, and then we've told it if physics.raycast from the exact position of the camera, project forward, save the variable. If it hits the tag enter, grab the code of the door button, and inside the door button's code now we could see, I just typed in .l and it showed look at open, and look at open then is gonna go into the door's code, which is gonna go into the lower door. It's gonna call the lower door method, and that lower door method is going to change target position to the lowered position. So basically, this is all just going to work. Fingers crossed. Assuming I saved all the codes, I can't remember if I did. So look at that enter button. Wicked. The door opened. Seems to be moving a bit slow at the end. So let's speed that up a bit. Just moved a bit too slow for what I like. I'll show you what I mean. So when I look at the enter button, look at the ending, it just decides to slow itself down. So inside the door, we could make let's keep these together because they're to do with the positioning. Public float means can't use for public float, which means a number with a decimal place. Speed, and we're going to call it 1.5f. So let's say it's 1.5 times faster than what the current speed is. So in this lerping thing, in this lerping script, where we've told it to go by time.delta time, I'm going to multiply that by speed. And this is the speed within. If you ever forget where you are, look at your file name. If you've named it cleverly, look at the class. So we're in the door. So we've assigned a speed to a door. So let's go back here. Here's a door. The door now has a speed here. Let's see if that made any difference for us. Bit better. It slows down at the end. So what we could do is, don't make it too fast because then it's like don't even see the effect. But I've just done speed 2. Cool. Door's opened. Now we need to do the same thing for closing the door. So let's get the button, duplicate it. And it's got a different name and it's got the same tag, so we're going to do button. But if you notice, the name incremented with a 1, the tag didn't. So that's why one of the reasons you want to use tags. We're going to call it button, let's call it exit. Okay, so we're going to make a new tag called exit. You can go here and add tag. I go through project settings, which you can get to by going edit, project settings, and then I docked my project settings into this window here, and I'm going to call it exit. I'm going to go there, and I am saving that. Well, I don't have to press save. I've just assigned a tag. Okay, so we've got 2 buttons, but we need to now move it. So we'll make sure we're on the exit button. And change the text. All right, exit. Okay, and because we duplicated it, we've still got the door script in here, so we don't need to drag any more scripts. But what we want to try to do, if we want to be messy and inefficient, we'll make a separate script for enter, separate script for exit. But that's just a waste of time. So what we want to do now is let's make we have a private for target position. We've got a public for lowered position. I think we can get away with a private vector, well not 2, because it's not 2D. We can get away with a private vector 3-4 closed position. Let's call it closed position. And now how do we want to declare what the closed position is? We could declare that at the start of the game. So at the start of the game, we're telling it that the initial target position is a transform position, because the transform position is the closed position. Instead of us having to make it public and then manually enter it in the editor, how we did here, and instead of us having to manually like write, it might not be 000, if it was something else, it might have like all these weird numbers. So instead of us having to manually write it there, we know, if we're competent, we're going to put the door in the right place of our building, our environment, our level. So in the code, we could just kind of do like a clever hack in quote marks, and we can just say, okay, so we've said target position equals transform position right at the first millisecond of the game. Then we can tell it closed position equals target position, because this is only going to run once. So now we've set what the closed position is. So we've said we declare the closed position as the initial target position. Now it doesn't matter if the target position changes, because this is all in the start method. So this is basically being called before the first frame update. So like 1/60th of a second, for example, on a half decent computer. Okay, so now we have a closed position saved. What we're going to do here is we're going to create just going to copy what we've already done and then just change everything from lower to closed. Custom method to change the door's target position to the closed position. Public void close door. Do these 2 brackets, do these 2 curly brackets, and we're going to just say change the target position to the closed position. So target position equals closed position. Then we have to enter the door button, and again, same thing as we just did there, same concept. Custom method for when the exit, so we're going to call it, so when the exit button is being looked at. Now with VR, you don't have to just trigger upon look, you can trigger upon click, because on Google Cardboard, I don't have one with me at this second, there's a button, you can press the button and it pushes the screen. On the old school ones, you pull the button down and it triggers a magnet to affect the magnetism of the gyroscope. So you can use a button for things as well. But for this tutorial demo, we're just going to use Raycasts. It's not that much harder to add a code to activate something on click. Maybe I'll do that now if time allows. So anyway, we're going to create a public void. It says look at open, so we're going to say look at. Okay, I should have wrote look at enter to be consistent, but I did look at open. So I'm going to call it look at exit, and then I'm going to say door. Okay, remember, we've already given the door code to the game object, and we've referenced in this script attached to this game object to tell it, allow us to accept the door. So if we just type in door, it's now looking inside the door, and inside the door it will be close. I think I call it closed door. Okay, but for consistency, because it's bugging me, this should be look at enter, but this is going to break our game basically, because I don't even think it's going to, yeah, it's not going to let us play it because I've changed one damn word in the door button script that it's even busted this one up, I think, as well. Oh no, that was me. Let's put 2 brackets there. Okay, I've put look at enter here, but this used to be look at open, so I need to go into door. Nope. I need to come into VR player, and where I told it to look at open, I need to find something else. Look at enter. Oh, and then I need to put 2 brackets after. And we are good. I think we are good because those red errors went away. When it will let me play now because it won't compile it if there's an error. And opening works. Closing ain't going to do nothing because we have not we haven't told the eyesight the actual VR headset to do anything. Okay, so we've got an if block saying if the tag is equals enter. So let's do another one saying if hit dot transform if hit dot transform dot tag double equals exit. I think we called it exit. Do this curly bracket, and then hit dot transform dot get component triangle brackets, get component from where, get it from the door button, do this double bracket there, and now we're going to say look at exit. Do that, those 2 brackets, do that now. I suppose we want to do an else if, so we're in, because we're already in an if block. Yeah, we're already in an if block. Let's see if this is working, and then maybe I'll show you how to emulate clicking the actual VR button or the screen. So okay, enter, exit, enter, exit. Now the reason this works now is this is accessing the door's lowered position. It's triggering, it's telling the door's target position to change to the lowered position. This exit button is telling the door's target position to change to the closed position. The reason it's not doing anything now is the target position is the same as the closed position, so the animation will cancel itself out. It will become 0 because remember it said something like b minus a. So if I go here, it knows b is on like 0 and a is minus 4.5, so it's going to do that calculation. But now a is minus 4. B is minus 4.5 and a is minus 4.5, or 4.9997, as you can see here. Same thing. And then we got to 0. So that's that. Let us do another one. If input dot okay, if input dot get get button down dot fire 1 Okay, if input.get button fire 1, what this should mean is on your mouse, it's your left click, and on your VR headset, your Google VR headset, it is that the magnet button. But the new VR headsets, when you press that button, it actually taps the screen. So if you do that, then do this. Let's see if that works. Where's this bracket from? Okay, let's get rid of that. This bracket is linked to this if, so we're going to need it. So we're doing an if statement. So if you've tapped that that button, then and only then should you start to see if the raycast is taking place. If it is, save it in a hit. I might need to put this in here, we'll see. And then if it's enter, get the door buttons code and activate the look at enter method, which will then go to the doors method of lower door, which will then change the position. And then else look at, see if the raycast has hit the exit and exit button, or hit anything with the tag exit. I could make a sphere and call, with the tag exit, and if so, it will go into the door buttons code, its component, and it will try to look at exit thing. So let's see if this worked. It seemed to save, so okay, let's get rid of these errors. Not errors, but okay. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you. It's not doing nothing now, but when I click, it does. So another way to do that is if we have clicked, then we're going to go say debug.log player has clicked. Yeah, player's clicked. Headset. The VR headset, and then you've got to finish the semicolon, otherwise it doesn't know the code is that you want to execute that code, and stop there. So let's press play. Okay, now wait, I just clicked here and it's telling me I'm clicking, but every time I click it's like registering like at least 10. If you look at that number, it increases. So that is, it's a bit of a bug, because if you wanted to shoot one bullet, you press click once, it will be like a machine gun. So the error here was if input.get button is supposed to be .get button down. Now it should be 1 for 1. 1 click equals 1 bullet, 1 laser. So let's, for example, I'm going to hit this door, but obviously not going to do anything. See, it says player has clicked the VR headset and it only goes up, it increments by 1, not the random 10 to 20 that was in for. Okay, so let me go over enter, click, boom. So you can imagine, the players walking around or looking, they have to tap their headset and then they can interact, tap the exit button, and then they can interact. You could even make it that when you tap enter, the player will be teleported or animated inside this environment, and then inside this environment there can be other things taking place. So yeah, that covered off for us. What did we cover off? Environment. We created a floor, walls, making a door. We did this lerping, linear interpolation to open and close door. We've even, let's add something else here. Okay, we've done custom methods, and we've even done firing button trigger. Technically it's a VR button trigger, because that's how Google Cardboard has changed. And okay, wicked. I will see you in another video in the future. Bye.